Hey, you guys. Thank you so much for coming in to talk with me today. Today is World AIDS Day. And this is a day that internationally, globally, we celebrate and we remember those that we lost to the HIV uh, pandemic. Um, So, World AIDS Day was actually started in 1984. Um, and it was an international day to raise awareness to the AIDS epidemic. And also, it was for mourning of those that we had lost. So, today, around the state of New York, around the U.S., um, people are celebrating World AIDS Day. And also during this time, there was a quilt made for those who did not know. And these panels were sewn together into this huge quilt of those who had passed away. So um, families had made panels of their family members that had been lost. So if a person, say a mother, had lost their son or daughter to the HIV/AIDS epidemic, they would put together this panel, right, with their own personal memories of the person that they had lost. And they submitted it. And this quilt got so big that it was spread across the Washington state, out and by the dang on it, the by the White House. The quilt was so big that it covered the whole thing. So again, this is World AIDS Day, and this is a day that we commemorate and um, remember those that we lost to the HIV and AIDS pandemic. Um, Now, for me, because I was diagnosed with HIV in 2007, I never had to live through um, those darker days of HIV where people were dying left and right. People in the 80s and early 90s, there was really no medication, and people were dying so quick. Like, they were dying within 6 months. Like, people didn't have time to even grasp what was going on, after they got their HIV or their AIDS diagnosis. And so they were dying. And this particular day was put together to allow people to be able to remember their loved ones, right? But fortunately for me, I was not diagnosed during that time. So by the time I was diagnosed in 2007, um, there were medications. There was a one a day pill. When I got diagnosed in 2007, I was put on a medication called the Tripla, and it was a one pill with three medications in it. So I didn't have, the I didn't experience the losing people part. It's kind of hard for me, and I hate to say it, it's kind of hard for me to even fathom or understand the grief and the loss that people felt in the beginning of this epidemic, in the beginning, in the 80s, in the 90s. Like, I didn't have to go through that because, again, I was diagnosed in 2007. And by this point, there were medications that were working. There was even, one a day pill. So I didn't ever have to go through that where people were dying, right? And so World AIDS Day was started because it was a day of mourning, a day of remembrance, right? And so now it's 2022, and I never think that we should forget those that came before us, right? I don't think that we should ever stop remembering the people that we lost, the people that paved the way for me to even be able to be sitting here in front of you, right? um, Comfortable enough, proud enough, healthy, healthy enough, right? To be able to be talking to you like this, because there were some pioneers that in those days we lost, right? That were up until their last breath, they were advocating to make sure that people living with HIV and AIDS were being treated with respect, with dignity, that we got the care that we needed, the medications that we needed. And so this day is a day of remembering them. This day is a day of, for me, and I'm just saying for me, right? Because again, I was not diagnosed during the time of the 80s and the early 90s. So I never had to feel that effect of the losing people consistently. But for me, this day is more so for those who are not HIV positive to understand how far we have come, right? So, in the beginning, if you were diagnosed with HIV or AIDS, you usually had 6 months, at the most a year to live, right? But now we are living and thriving. We're having children that are negative. We are getting married to folks that are negative and not transmitting the virus to them because we are undetectable, meaning sexually we are untransmittable. So things have changed so much in almost 40 some years from when the HIV/AIDS pandemic first came on the scene, right? And so, again, this is just a day to remember them. But my hope and my prayer is that one day, alongside the time and the day that we are remembering those that we have lost, I would love that if we could start doing the point where we are uplifting and, like celebrating those that are still here, right? Because for some of the people that were here in the 80s and they're still here, this day brings a lot of trauma for them. This day also can bring guilt. And when I say guilt, it's survivor's guilt. It's the why did I make it this far and someone else didn't, right? So they have to remember the people that they've lost. And sometimes for some people it's very traumatic. You know what I mean? Like this day can put a lot of, emotional pressure on people. But for me, again, because I didn't have to go through the days of losing friends every day and burying people every week and not having medication. And then when they did first start the medications, they were so hard on the body, that people were just deathly sick every day. Couldn't even get out their beds, right? And it was to the point where it was just better to just not even take the medication, right? And so I personally did not have to live through those days because, again, I was diagnosed in 2007. And when I got diagnosed, they were already on one-a-day pills. Um, and it was a one-a-day pill that didn't have a lot of side effects. I mean, it did have a side effects, but I don't remember it ever happening to me. But I know that the medication I was on, people said that they had a lot of nightmares. But I was hoping tonight that I would have been able to have a few of my friends who actually lived through the beginning days of the HIV epidemic, come and talk with me so that they can talk about, how hard and bad those days were, and how it's how they have managed to survive and continue to live and move forward, you know, in this day from back then to now. Because again, there's no shame. We are not shamed of living with this virus. We know that HIV is living in us. We're not living with HIV. We've learned to be happy, be healthy, and just live our lives, right? But this day was started out to be a day of remembrance. And like I said, there are quotes all across the United States of people who were lost to this pandemic, and their families have used that to just keep them in the forefront and keep their memory alive. But for me, again, I keep saying this, I did not live through the days of people dying every single day. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is to get this diagnosis and not know if I'm gonna be alive next week. I don't know what that is. I When I got diagnosed in 2007, um, of course, this was an emotional, stressful time for me because I tell people all the time, to be honest, was very uneducated. I was under the notion that the only people that caught HIV were gay men or those who were using injection drugs. So I didn't think that I was in the class of people who could contract HIV. And all I did know is that if you got HIV, in my mind, it was you died. If you contracted this virus, in my mind, you died. If you were infected with HIV, you died. In my mind, this is what I thought, right? Hey, Ashley. This is what I thought because this is what I know. I knew. I was very uneducated back in 2007. And so when I got diagnosed with HIV, for me, the issue was I thought I was going to die, so I wanted to speed up the process. I was so ashamed. I was confused. I did not understand how I contracted HIV because in my mind, again, I'm being honest with you guys. I was so uneducated that I was like, I'm not a gay man. How is this happening to me? I don't use injection drugs. How did this happen to me? And I'm in a relationship, a monogamous relationship, with someone who, for the first 6 months, I was adamant about using condoms. And we had just recently, within the last 3 to 4 months, stopped using condoms because he was adamant about not wanting to use condoms. And finally, because I trusted him, I decided to not use condoms because I said it's just me and him. I'm not doing nothing and I'm trusting that he's not doing nothing. And unfortunately, I trusted someone with my life who turned my life upside down. So, thank God, I was diagnosed in 2007, right? I say that because, like I said, at that time, they were already having one pill a day. People were living longer. People were not dying as regularly. And so, luckily for me, I didn't have to go through the things that the people who were diagnosed in the early 80s, the early 90s had to go through. The sickness, um, the losing friends like every single day, um, not knowing how to even emotionally deal with this, right? Not even having time to deal with the losses that people were having because they were happening so fast because even the government, the health doctors did not know what was going on. So that's why I say, luckily, I was diagnosed in 2007 because things had moved along. But again, the World AIDS Day was created to remember those that we have lost. Now, for me, I have people that I've lost recently in the last year, two in three, 2 and 1. And I can't say so much it's to the virus, because everybody that I know that is HIV positive, my friends, they're all living their lives. And the ones that have passed from other things. HIV has not been, for me, physically, ever been a problem. I take my medication. I'm undetectable. I cannot transmit this virus to anyone sexually. And I don't ever have to worry about HIV being a health issue for me because I do what I'm supposed to do right now. And for me, luckily, that is keeping me healthy. Now, again, this day was created because so many people um, were lost to this virus in the early 80s and 90s because there was no medication. And then when the medication did come around, it was so harsh that people was like, you know what? I'd rather not even take the medication because I feel better when I don't. Then we had people who unfortunately were born with the virus. And so now they don't have a choice. They don't know what it is to not be HIV positive, right? From birth, they are living with this and having to learn how to cope with it, work through the medication. Hey, Ashley. And they had to live their life from day one living with HIV. And then stigma has killed so many people. You're right, Melissa. Stigma has killed so many people. The stigma, the shame, the depression that happens. Everybody doesn't have a support system. And unfortunately, everybody is not comfortable enough to do what I'm doing right now. And that's okay. But it's not okay when it makes a person go into this dark place where they don't no longer want to fight. They don't want to live anymore. And so, again, for me, World AIDS Day is a day for people to remember that if you have someone, a loved one, a friend, a partner who's living with HIV, remember to always let them know that you love them, that you're there for them no matter what it is. If they just need to cry, if they need to vent, just let them know you're there. Because I said to you guys some weeks ago that I'm not okay. And when I say that I'm not okay because there are so many things that I had pushed to the back of my head from the time I got diagnosed, and even before then, that one day it all bubbled up. And I realized I'm not okay. Even though I smile, I advocate, I got my face on billboards, some days I'm just not okay. And there are lots of people like me who are living with HIV where some days we just not okay. And again, I'm going to say it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be that person that people depend on. It's okay. Um, and again, like I said, this today is a day that is for some people really hard because they have lost so many people to this. That also they've lost people to this and they're feeling guilt because they're still here and others are not. And they don't understand why. Right? And so, I just want people to continue to educate themselves about HIV. Know that this virus is not killing us. We are living with HIV. living awesomely, living abundantly. We are thriving, but some days we're just not okay. And there are those who have lost people that this day of remembrance is maybe sometimes the only day that they think about those that they lost because it hurts too much to think about them all the time. I think that that's the reason those quotes were put together too. It was a way of keeping people's memories in the forefront. Because I don't know about y'all, but when somebody passes away, people tend to forget them, out of sight, out of mind, and that's a hard pill to swallow, at least for me. And just an FYI, if any of you guys want to come in and chat with me and maybe talk about your experience with HIV or a loved one, or if you've lost somebody, please feel free, hop in. I'll bring you on in and we can chat. That's what I was hoping for, that this would be a dialogue type of day, not me just talking at y'all. I don't know, maybe you have had someone in your family who was HIV positive, or somebody maybe you did lose back in the 80s or 90s. Um, I'd love to hear about that person. Um, and I just love to chat about it. So, again, if you are on the live and you want to come in and talk to me, please do. Um, I definitely like to chat with someone who was diagnosed back in the 80s or 90s and just, hear your story. Because, again, like I said, um, I was diagnosed in 2007. So those harsh realities of people dying every day and being deathly ill all the time, not being able to get out the bed. I don't know what that is, because I didn't have to go through that, because by the point of time when I was diagnosed, there were medications out that were one a day, and people were not dying. I have been talking about for the last couple of years starting a survivor's quilt, because the narrative is that we are not dying anymore, right? We're living and thriving with HIV. And I don't ever want to forget those that we have lost. Don't get me wrong. But I also want to put the narrative out, because it's a true narrative. We're living now with HIV. We are not dying. And I feel like if we want to end some of the stigma behind HIV, we have to change that narrative. Again, never forget those that we've lost. Absolutely not. But we need to start trying to change the narrative. And do things, because for me today, for some, listen, I just want to be definitely honest with y'all. When I hear World AIDS Day, I feel this heavy weight come on me. I feel a heavy weight come on me, because to me, it's just a day of sadness. And I would like this day to be a day of, one, remembrance, but a day of uplifting those who are still here. Because there are millions of us still here fighting this fight. We rest on the shoulders of giants who are not here today, but we are here today because they fought that fight until their last breath. So I would like to celebrate us who are still here. So again, I've talked to people about creating this survivor's quilt, or people who are living right now with HIV would get their squares, put on them whatever they want to put on them. And we could make this huge quilt showing how we as people living with HIV are surviving this disease. And we are still here fighting the fight for those that we've lost. So that is true. Thank you, Kirsten. Love you. Um, yes, Karina, that's absolutely true. So again, like I said, if anybody would like to come on and talk with me, I can bring you into the chat. I can bring up to 10 people on. You want to be a part of it, Karina? Okay, let me see. I think you. Let me see. I'm gonna paste this there. Karina, I pasted the You click on that link that I just posted, and it'll bring you in. But yeah, I definitely would love to talk with you. I'd like to hear other people's stories of this, of maybe loved ones that they have had who are no longer here, or people who have been living with this virus for maybe since the 80s or 90s, because I know that their experience is way different than mine. Again, I was diagnosed in 2007, and people were not dying back then. People were living. You know what I mean? So my thing that my story is different. But I've lost a lot of good friends. I've lost a lot of people that have been fighting this fight way before I even was able to free myself enough to be a part of this fight, and they're no longer here. And they have not died because per se the virus itself took them out. But maybe there's some other things that was just too much for them. Because what I need people to understand is that people with HIV go through a lot of emotions. A friend of mine is writing a book, and the name of her book is "There's Levels to This." You don't understand that there are so many degrees and levels to living with HIV that for somebody who's not positive, you would not understand what that means. Waking up and realizing that you have to come outside if you have decided to put your life on Front Street for everybody to say and judge and poke and prod and question you all the time. Or if you work in this field, as I do, not being able to totally worry about your own issues because you're a shoulder for other people. Um, Taking on other people's issues and concerns while they're living with HIV and you're living with HIV, but you can't deal with all of your things because you're helping them work through their things. And that's where me being able to say that I'm not okay. I have anxiety. I have days where I'm just like, what am I doing? Why did I make this choice to put my life in front of the world? But then I remember that God kept me all this time so that I can be here and try to continue to educate those who are not living with HIV, support those who are, and try to end some of the stigma. And like I said, this day is a day of remembrance of those that have stood this trial way before me, who had to go through those horrible days of being sick every day, not even being able to get out the bed. Um, you know, just things going on with their body that they couldn't control, and then 6 months to a year dying from something that they didn't understand. And then the stigma for the LGBT community, stigma for heterosexual people who contract the HIV because If you were a man and you contracted HIV, you had to have been a gay man for a long time. You couldn't tell nobody anything different. Then it became, this is only a person who is either, like I said, gay, or you must be shooting drugs. Not realizing that HIV is a disease that anybody can catch. I don't care if you black, white, skinny, fat, straight or gay. It don't matter. It doesn't matter. Anybody can catch HIV. And unfortunately, anybody could, even though in this day you do not have to die from HIV. If you don't take care of yourself and take your medication every day, you can succumb to HIV. And then what that means is you will catch opportunistic infections, pneumonia, PCP, things like that. Because, if you don't take the HIV medication that they have prescribed us, eventually your body can't fight anymore. Because unfortunately, we do have people that are walking around with HIV not knowing that they're HIV positive, because it takes a little while for most people for the virus to kind of like take over your body, right? And so for me, sometimes I have a tug and fight with some patients because they're like, I feel fine. I don't want to take that medication. I feel fine. There's no need. Not knowing the longer they wait, the less their body can fight. And so, yeah, this is a day of remembrance, but I would also like to make this a day of us uplifting those that are still here, fighting the fight, living every day with this virus, trying to educate. And even those who are living with the virus and they're living in silence, they're so afraid to tell somebody that they're HIV positive because they think that their family will turn away from them, their friends will turn away from them, their kids. I don't think, if you're not HIV positive, you could never understand the terror that comes over you when you have to disclose your status to somebody. It's a terror. It is a terror to even sometimes have to think about that. And everybody cannot, do it. Everybody can't do it, you know. And I have people who say, "Oh, you need to always tell da 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 da." For some people, if they disclose their status, they might die. So, before you tell somebody, "Oh, you need to tell so and so and so and so," understand that people have to weigh out their options before they disclose their status. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, like, no, you should tell right away. Again, you don't understand that for somebody, say for instance, I'm just going to use this example, y'all. And I wish some of y'all lovely people would hop on here with me and have a conversation with me. Ashley, Karina, y'all can come on in here. Y'all got some stories and some information y'all could be sharing. um, take for instance, you have a woman who is in an abusive relationship, right? And she's already in an abusive relationship. And by the grace of God, she goes and gets tested and finds out she's positive, right? Even though she knows who she got that from, God forbid she mention it to that person and they lash out at her physically and possibly kill her, even though it ain't her fault or his fault, because men get abused too. Or say you meet somebody and you want to tell them, but they start talking crazy about HIV, that you're like, if I say anything, I don't know what they might do. Family. You have some family who talk about hey Livin. Oh my god, Livin, you want to come on? Please come on. I would love for you to come on and chat with me. I'm gonna post a thing. Um I'm gonna watch you. You come on and chat with me until then. You got some time. I just posted it. You can hop on. Telling their family because their family might disown them. And really, other than possibly having some support from your family, okay. Um, what is the reason to tell them? Because truthfully, what you need to know as a person who's negative, it ain't your business if I'm HIV positive or not. Especially if we ain't sleeping together. I don't have to tell you because you can't catch HIV from drinking behind me, eating behind me, sitting behind me. If I sneeze on you, you can't catch it. If I kiss you on the cheek, you can't catch it. So, what benefits does me telling you I'm HIV positive bring to the table? And I say all this to say, before you tell a person that they need to disclose their status, understand that every person is in a different situation. And every person has to weigh that out before they do that. Because unfortunately, for some people, they can get killed. And then let's not talk about the states where HIV is criminalized. Luckily, here in New York State, we don't have that. But there are states that you can go to jail for just having HIV and having sex with somebody, even if you told them. How crazy is that? There are some states that you can get charged as a predator just because you're HIV positive. It's crazy. People that are not HIV positive do not understand all of the hurdles that we have to go through living with this virus. And for some people, it's easier than others. But think about that person that has no support. Think about that person that gets this diagnosis and they are 18 years old and they are terrified to tell their mother or father, terrified to tell any of their friends, terrified to tell the partner that they're with now because it's not necessary that they caught it from that particular partner. So now they're living in terror. And on top of living in terror, they're trying to deal with this diagnosis that they just got. And as much as we tell them, listen, you're not going to die, they don't hear that. Do you know how depressing and stressful that can be on somebody? So, yes, this is a day of remembrance. But again, I need this to be a day of uplifting and encouragement. This needs to be a day that we support and uplift those that are still here. Never forget those that we lost. Absolutely not. There are people that I have lost who were positive. Leanna, one of them, her sister is on here. There are awesome people that have ran their race. I'm not getting emotional, y'all. I told myself I wasn't. But there are also us who are still here, and we have to continue to fight this fight for them. We always remember them. But we continue to fight. But we hope that the people that are close to us, our family, our friends, understand that there are going to be days that we are just not okay. And there's really nothing that you can say or do to make it better. The only thing that you can do is just be there for us. Because again, if you're not living with HIV, you could never, ever, 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 ever understand what it is to live with this virus. And like I said, I smile, I'm living my life, I travel, I have 4 grandchildren. I know, Nikki, I love you. It's my best friend. But there are days that I just am not all right. My daughter, oh my goodness. There are days that I'm just not all right because living with this virus is heavy. You know, if I ever wanted to date again, I have to go through that whole disclosure thing. That ain't easy even for me. Even though I'm in the public, still having to tell somebody who does not know that I'm HIV positive still brings a shiver down my back. Even for me. I've been lucky enough that in all these years, 17 years that I've been positive, I've never had anybody, well, let me stop. Dating wise, I really never had an issue, minus one time. You know, they tried to say that that wasn't what it was, but I knew that it was, and I was okay with it. But luckily, it's not been an issue for me like that. Um, but there are people who, as soon as they told family members that they were HIV positive, the family immediately backed away from them. Didn't want them in their house, didn't want them around their kids, and totally just moved away from them. There are people who told a friend that they thought was a friend, and the friend then went and told everybody. So many obstacles that we have to worry about and we go through when we're HIV positive. So this is a day of remembrance, but this should be a day of education. This should also be a day of uplifting those who are still here. And it should be conversation because we have to continue to talk about HIV. So it becomes a normal conversation. So it's not so taboo. As soon as somebody says HIV, everybody's like, I wish that we talked about HIV and STDs more in our schools because whether people want to admit it or not, our children are contracting HIV 12 and 13 years old. They are. Because let's be honest, they having sex. I don't care how good you feel like you was raising your child and I taught my child A, B, and C. Once that child is out in the world, that child is going to make decisions. And unfortunately, for some of our babies, they made some decisions that they contracted HIV. And we have kids that are 13 and 14 years old that are living with HIV and they have not told their parents. Can you imagine a child that age having to live with that on their own? Come on now. I can't even, I don't know if I could have did it. And I don't know how they managed to push forward through that. And then again, we come back to those, imagine those who, which is not happening pretty much not at all here in the States, well, in New York State. People being born with HIV. Now you ain't have nothing, you ain't had no choice whatsoever. You was just born. And you were born with a virus. that you had no control over. Can you imagine a child 6 and 7 and 8 years old having to deal with that diagnosis? Even though they're not going to die, but they have to now live with this. I'm going to post the link in the chat, and you just click on that and hop on. Sarah said, I had the best health teacher in high school, and we definitely need more like him. His sister was Kelly McCartney. As Kelly McCarthy AIDS walk, and he would tell her story every year to the entire student body. Yeah, I mean, we definitely need people like that. Like, you definitely need people like that. Levin, let me see if I can put this in your, send it to you. I just sent it to you in your inbox. Um, yeah, we need the education. And the crazy thing is, guys, the schools, they they don't want us in there. They don't want to talk about sex. They literally do not want to talk about the things that are happening to our children to help them. They don't want to talk about it. I would never understand that. I would never understand that, y'all. Why would you not want to educate these children? Because if we don't educate them as parents, as aunts and uncles, as teachers, the streets are going to educate them. And if the streets educate them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be in a place we don't want them to be. So, again, this day should be a day of remembrance and education. So, if you have teenagers, my request, oh, bring my baby in. Living!
Hey, Trotter!
So, let me introduce this wonderful, wonderful soul right here.
Aww.
This is my new, and I'm gonna call him baby brother because I know he's younger than me. My new baby brother, Livin, who just recently became a part of our HIV Stops From Me campaign.
Yes, which is an amazing campaign.
Absolutely. So, Livin, talk to me about becoming part of the campaign, and when you first got diagnosed, and what does today mean to you?
Listen, today for me is actually, you know how people feel about their birthday? That's how I feel about today.
Today makes you feel like your birthday.
Yes, because for me, like you heard me share my story with you guys when I first came, and when we're sharing at the training 6 years ago, I thought I was dying. I thought I was the end of me. But God showed me that was the beginning of an amazing life, which I'm currently living. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
So living with HIV, 6 years, strong, healthy, beautiful, professional, business owner, succeeding in everything. It's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a huge blessing. It's a huge blessing. You know, becoming HIV positive at first was a very shaming thing for me. I really
Mm-hmm.
felt ashamed at first.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I wasn't gonna be able to have a chance at love. I thought I would not be able to follow my dreams. Yet here I am, following mine and helping others connect with their dreams.
Absolutely.
So look at God, right? Look at God.
Absolutely.
You recently. I recently became a father of my baby kitten.
I
She's somewhere.
know. He's so cute.
Luna. She's somewhere in there. She's very independent. Cats already.
I know.
But today means a lot. Today means which I'm gonna be doing a live video at 10 actually on
And
my
I will be
page,
I
and
will
it's
be
gonna
on
be
it.
about empowering people because we live in a time now where people are so there's still stigma. There's still
Mm-hmm.
stigma about HIV. There's still people
Mm-hmm.
who feel afraid to say I'm HIV positive and I'm living healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm HIV positive and I love myself. I deserve love. And aside from being HIV positive, I'm also this, and that. You know,
Absolutely.
so that's why I came into this campaign. I came into this campaign because I already have a very huge platform. I have a very large following, all of my social medias, and my love, Trotter. One of the things that really made me want to come into this campaign is because I have a lot of people who look at me like I'm perfect. Yeah, the comments and everything from my fans, and I'm like, I wish you knew this part of me.
Hmm.
I wish you knew that just like you say how my comedy helps you come out of your depression, just how you like my products and this and that. I wish you knew that I had to spend 2 months in a room without turning on the lights because when I was diagnosed with HIV, I was so depressed that I could not turn on the lights in that room. But today, I'm this amazing person once I decided to turn that light on, you know?
Hmm.
And I need people to know that there's more than what you see outside in someone, you
Absolutely.
know? And just like we choose to put our story out there, I know that it's going to help a lot of those souls that are still in that room like I was 6 years
Hmm.
ago. Today
Yep.
I'm a light, but it wasn't like an overnight thing. I had to pray a lot. I had to learn how to love myself again. I had
Hmm.
to learn how to take care of myself better and stuff. And like, damn, today, I even take because I do counseling on a daily basis
Hmm.
because I do talk about my status a lot. So people get to reach out to me, and they open up to me, and I love it. I love the fact that I can be an inspiration, that I could be a vessel for someone to get to love themselves more,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know. So listen, I cannot wait till those freaking Slade titles come out next month.
I know. I
Because
know.
we're already slaying this month and the campaign is
Absolutely.
not even out, and I'm already like sharing everywhere, and because I'm so excited. And there's one thing that is very empowering when you start to believe and love yourself. It's like nobody can come to me and tell me anything that will make me bow my head, because I know
Absolutely.
there's a God that has me being so healthy, so strong, so confident, who I wasn't years ago.
Hmm.
Some people might look at me and question me like, "How do you feel about being HIV positive? Well, oh my God, like you're not afraid to be so open?" I'm like, "Why would I be afraid?" The Bible even says it. I'm not a Christian, but I'm very spiritual, and it says, "The truth shall set you free."
Absolutely. And you know what? It's crazy you said it because I remember when I decided to be a part of the HIV campaign. One of the main reasons I did it was because I felt like I had this one last secret that people could hold over my head. And we know people will use against you, right? To maybe get you to do stuff, act a certain way, or just make you feel littler than you are. And I decided to take my power
Yeah,
back. I said,
exactly.
now don't nobody have nothing that they can say about me that I ain't already told the whole
That I
wide
haven't
world.
said myself.
Is that you be like now? Is that all you got? That's all you got? You got to
Right.
come better than that. But
Come harder.
yeah, and then to me, like you said, I always just hope that I can help one person know that today you don't have to die. You can live today, right? And so I was just saying before you came on that today is a day of remembrance, right? We remember those that we have lost to this virus. We remember those who we stand on their backs, right? Who
Yes.
fought so hard for us to be at a point where we're taking one a day pills and now a shot and all this other stuff, and we're able to come out and talk about our status. But I
Yes.
also want it to be a day that we uplift and support and celebrate those that are still living.
Yes.
So I've been talking about doing a survivor's quilt. We have the memorial quilt, right, for those who have passed. But what about us that are still here?
Yeah.
So I want to do this survivor's quilt where people that are living with HIV can do their own little panel. about how they're living today with HIV and how they're thriving.
Amen.
You know,
That's
so
that's an amazing idea. We should definitely work on that.
hmm
And also for the ones who are, like I said, because like one of my focuses is that to save lives.
hmm
There are still people who are still committing suicide upon receiving this diagnosis. There are people
yep,
who still believe that that's it, and they don't. There's nothing else beyond this diagnosis. So that's why I'm being loud as hell.
listen,
Like, no, there is a whole lot more beyond this diagnosis. It's just it takes for a person to believe. Listen, it took me, and then I'm doing this, like I said, because it even took me a little bit to listen a story from someone else on how they're thriving for me to believe, because sometimes we need that. Sometimes if it's not inside of us, that strength, but we get it from someone else, it really feeds. It feeds our strength. Because
absolutely.
sometimes we just go into that fear of what's going to happen now, what's next now. And you were mentioning something very important when I started listening, when I first joined your live, and you were talking about the support system.
hmm
A support system is very important, even if it's one person.
Yep.
Even if it's one person that knows what you're going through, that whenever you're in your head and you can't with those emotions, you can't with those thoughts, that this, at least this one person you can call, that you don't feel like you're like this,
hmm
that
hmm
you're completely open and they could see you for who you are.
hmm
It's very important. Of course, it takes each and every one of us our time to open up to someone. Because let's talk about it. Let's be honest. At first, it's like, I don't want to tell nobody about this because I'm ashamed. Like, I don't want to be pointed at. I don't want to be
hmm
criticized. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be discriminated against.
hmm
But it comes a time, just like I always say, there comes a time where you stop thinking about HIV and your status. Like, you literally come to a point where you don't even think about it. Like,
hmm
that's just somebody that lives in your house without paying rent. But
Absolutely. It needs to start paying rent. It's
but
taking
aside from
place.
that, you really come to realize it's nothing. It's nothing to it.
Yeah.
So just like that, you want to have a support system. You want to open up to some, and if there's someone out there watching this live, like, you want to open up at least to someone, one person. One person. You don't have to go like worldwide, like me and Trotter. It takes a lot of bravery to get to where we at. But
Absolutely.
find one person you can trust,
Yeah.
someone that could listen to you, and of course not come and take your story and try to make gossip out of your story by sitting
Mhm.
with somebody else and telling something that belongs to you to tell, because that's another thing. That's another topic I'm also talking about when I go live at 10 p.m.
Okay.
um because that even locks us in even more. That makes us feel more, especially if we haven't coped 100%. That would definitely make someone go more into that shell.
Yep.
you know that is like that snail that little by little starts to come out of their shell, but then you like start bugging them with a stick. Of course they're gonna retract.
It's like a
you know
butterfly.
yes. So support system is important. That's one
Mhm.
thing I can definitely assure you. I remember when the day I got diagnosed, um the first person I called was Jalove, like I said, as my
Now I
best
was
friend.
on here and he said he wanted to go back in the waiting room and I thought I put him there, but I think I kicked him out and he never came back. I'm new
That's
to
my
the team
sister,
yet.
my brother, my mentor, everything. I've been in the medical field for 13 years. And before it happened to me, I was already helping people living with HIV because I would
Mhm.
see it every day, living, working in the medical field. So Ja was the one I would call, like, sis, I have this person that's going through this, and can you help me help them? Like, what can I tell them? What can I, little did I know God was preparing me to become this warrior that I am today.
Mhm.
He was one of the first, but then I also opened up to one of my aunts, one of my favorite aunts, the very same day. I was diagnosed, because I knew these were people I could trust. I knew these were people I could open up to, and they were not going to go sit with somebody else to talk
Mhm.
about something private, because they already know a lot of private things about myself. So that's the person you want to confide in if this
Yep.
ever happens to you, because don't think that you're not prone. People are born with HIV every day. There's a mother, there's a father, there's a brother, there's a grandmother, there's an uncle, there's a child, living with HIV today. And it takes this type of education, this type of love, this type of empowerment for us to know that we're not just our status, you know
Absolutely.
we can grow to be more brilliant, we can grow to be as successful, we can grow to be as, like, there's nothing that stop you
Mm-mm.
at all.
Not nothing. Listen, I
Like,
tell you all.
HIV stops with me, but HIV ain't gonna stop me.
I
Period.
tell people all the time I have HIV, but HIV is not me. But thank you for hopping on with me. I just want to say that I will be on your live at 10 o'clock. Guys, if you can, please share the live. Again, like I said, if you know someone who's HIV positive, please, please, please be that support system for them. Again, this is a day of
Connect them with us. If you follow
yes.
me, if you could see my page, I don't know, start. If you can't do it, be like, hey, I know
What's
this
your
person
living?
who
What's
we
your
can talk to.
I'm gonna type it in the comments. What's your pay your name on
If I hit chat here, are you gonna be able to see it?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yep. So yeah, so if you know anybody who needs support, please reach out to myself or Living. Share the live, subscribe to my YouTube page. Um, and again, remember those that we have lost, those that have fought the battle for us so that we could get to where we are. But also support, uplift, and encourage those that are still living with this virus, thriving,
Amen.
wonderful lives.
I sent it, Trotter. Do you see it? Living Sabio Fernandez. That's my Facebook.
Did you send it to my inbox or did you put it in the
I
chat?
I hit I hit chat on here.
Hmm.
Oh wait, let me send it on. Um, Hold on. I'm
Right
going
here.
on Messenger.
Okay, and I'll copy and paste it.
There you
Uh,
go.
got it. So this is his Facebook. If you want to reach out to him, please, please feel free to hit
Feel
him
a
up on
hundred percent
Facebook.
free.
He
I
does.
also make natural medicine that helps to strengthen our immune system. Living with HIV, I'm a herbalist. I work with herbs, and I take my product myself. It really helps at increasing our metabolism, comes healthier, our organs. Taking antiretrovirals, our cholesterol and sugar levels can go high. So my herbs help to really bring down those levels of cholesterol and all of that. You naturally lose weight. It helps with your thyroid and a lot of other things. But if you know anybody out there that HIV positive is thriving, is struggling, maybe because depending on how you take care of yourself, your body can suffer if you're not really taking the minerals, the vitamins aside from your antiretrovirals. You also have to take those minerals, those extra vitamins. Take your fish oil and other things that are going to help you wake up with a lot of energy every day and be able to, like,
Absolutely.
just live your
Absolutely.
life beautifully.
Absolutely. So, guys, if you want to know more about that, please feel free to hit him up on his Facebook. I put it in the chat. He also does comedy. I always watch it. I can't understand what's going on because he speaks in what language are you speaking? I don't want to get it wrong.
Spanish. I
Spanish.
speak Spanish, and
Yeah,
my native language was this Garifon. It's African
yeah.
and
So I don't
Arawak
know, but it's
language.
funny. I can figure out that they'd be funny. So follow him on Facebook again. Thank you guys so much. Please share the live. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to his Facebook, and we will see you guys soon. 10 o'clock, he's going to be doing a live. So if you go on his Facebook page, you will see his live. I love you so much, little brother. Thank you so much for
I
coming on
love
the
you too,
chat with
Trotter.
me.
God bless you, and
God
let's
bless
keep
you
on being
too.
amazing.
Absolutely, you too. Talk soon. Bye,
All right.
guys.